God blessed Abraham for not withholding his son. This story of the binding of Isaac is a harsh and demanding one. It has troubled ancient as well as modern readers. There is a hint in it that one's deepest commitments may call on one to do severe and terrible things. Perhaps those commitments will demand the sacrifice of another or of others. Some have suggested that this is the terribleness of religion, its irrational and bloodthirsty core. But it is hard for me to believe that this logic belongs to religion alone. The logic of sacrifice that is spelled out here, that some higher principle will call on us to kill, is seen in other parts of social life. Some may hear that injunction within politics, tribal affiliations. They may hear it from nation, identity, country, for the sake of principle or self-defense or territory or survival or justice. It is said that another must be sacrificed. That is the only way. Some scholars believe that the first story of the binding of Isaac did not have a happy ending. Because of the language that is used in the story, it is thought that the angel that stays the hand of the knife that stops Abraham from sacrificing, that was inserted later. In the story's first version, he kills his only son to appease the voice of the Lord. Remnants of this older version remain within the revision, remain within the text that we have today. For instance, Abraham returns down the mountain alone, leaving readers to wonder why his son Isaac has not accompanied him. Like many of you, I have been riveted, heartbroken by the images that I see on TV. I find myself watching these interviews with reporters and wondering what is happening just outside of the frame. In one interview, the reporter wears a black helmet and a black bulletproof vest. He blends into the canopy of the night sky, and the skyline of Gaza just behind him is dotted with lights. And during the broadcast, the loud blast of bombs begins sounding in the distance, but it is hard to tell where exactly they are falling, and indeed, he does not know. And me watching this, I wonder, who is being killed? Who is being sacrificed? On what side? For what cause? One of our congregation members was recently confronted at an event. He was going to sing with his barbershop quartet, and someone from another group wanted to know what side he is on. Despite trying to articulate a nuanced position, that person kept demanding, which side are you on? I'm afraid that choosing sides here means that you endorse the flattening, the eradication, the sacrifice of either Israel or Palestine, that you wish for bombs to fall on one or the other, that you will the sacrifice of one side or the other, that there is no middle ground, no way to articulate a position beyond this. Which side? Choose a side. I hear those voices. I hear them in the papers. I hear them from politicians. I hear them on the streets. And yet I cannot unsee what is happening on the other side, whichever that other side is from the one that I am supposed to choose. I cannot turn off the pain on the side of Israel. I just can't. Hamas launched an attack that killed 1,400 people. There are many more who are still unaccounted for, and over 100 hostages that are in terrible danger. And it hits close to home. There is a hostage who attended Deerfield High School, and thank God she was released this week. Many more have not been so lucky. As one Israeli mother put it, interviewed after knowing that her daughter and son-in-law had been killed, I feel hollowed out inside. I feel dead inside. I cannot turn off the pain of that. Nor can I turn off the pain of the Palestinians. One reporter writes after leaving the funerals for the Israeli dead in Gan Yemen, he wrote about his experience, and he says that while traveling, he spoke on the phone to Mossab Abu Toa, a young Palestinian poet who lives in northern Gaza with his family. The reporter had been speaking with this young poet for several days. Earlier in the week, the poet said, I hope I will be alive the next time you call. And then the next day, after learning of the reported hospital bombing in Gaza City, a text message came through from him that simply read, "Help, help, help." I can't turn off the pain of that either. It is said that the conflict between Israel and Palestine is intractable, tangled, impossible, hopeless, snarled, implacable, irresolvable, knotted, unworkable. And perhaps it is because of all of those descriptors that we find ourselves now in this place where it seems that the only solution is to choose a side and to aim for the eradication and flattening of one side or the other. We are hearing that language again and again. Politicians, commentators, and on the streets, whether it's spoken explicitly or whether it is just the implicit message under the words, it is being said. We must resist that. We must resist that. We must ask what can help us think through this knot, pull us beyond the logic of violence, get us past this need for sacrifice. It is noteworthy to me that in the story of the binding of Isaac, a later reader found the story as it was originally written, in which Abraham does murder his son. The later reader found it unacceptable. Said, no, this will not stand, and then chose to rewrite it. And that is the version that we have today. The idea that God demanded the sacrifice of Isaac was not something that this redactor, that this reader could abide. And so that reader, whoever they were, added the part where God stays Abraham's hand, stops him from committing the sacrifice that replaces Abraham's son with a goat. This vein in the Hebrew scriptures and in Jewish thought resists the call to more human bloodshed. This deeply humane response is present in these early writings, as we see from that redactor, and it also extends up into the present. Before he died trying to escape the Nazis, the Jewish philosopher Walter Benjamin continued to try to think through these impossible terms. He tried to think of ways to escape the logic of violence and revenge, and he wrote about the ways that history just keeps piling up the wreckage, so much wreckage that it is hard to think through how we can get past it. Any attempt to find progress feels lost in the destruction that just keeps compounding. And so he said that we need an intervention, something that can smash the terrible cycle, the terrible logic of violence that drives history and creates more and more pain. His solution was to look to moments in the past where the oppressed broke with history and found a way out, found a new way. He pleads with his reader, and I quote, to seize hold of such memories as they flash up in moments of danger. In other words, he calls on us to scour the memories of the past for moments that disrupt the logic of violence, that refuse it, just like that early redactor did, and find ways to do something different and better. Right now, we are in a moment of danger. It is a moment that feels so much like 9/11, where anything but the call to vengeance sounds like callousness, especially when you are not a part of present in the Middle East. And yet, I see in thinkers such as Benjamin, and I see in others who are writing and commenting today, both abroad and from within Israel and Palestine, a way to think and feel past the logic of sacrifice, the logic of vengeance and bloodshed. These are voices that admittedly can sound impractical, that can sound idealist, but I want to say that that is precisely why we need them right now. We need those voices right now, because without them, the world feels to me too bleak to comprehend. Yehuda Amichai was the uncrowned poet laureate of Israel. In his poem, An Arab Shepherd is Searching for His Goat on Mount Zion, rewrites the story of the binding of Isaac, a story that had already been rewritten. And in this poem, a Jewish father loses his son, while a Palestinian shepherd loses his goat. Eventually, though, neither are lost. Neither are killed. Neither are sacrificed. Neither are lost to what Amichai calls the terrible machinery of violence. The poem has such a compelling ending, I think. He writes, "Afterward, we found them among the bushes, and our voices came back inside of us, laughing and crying, searching for a goat or a son has always been the beginning of a new religion in these mountains." Those lines, so compelling, because in this revision, in this echo of the story of Abraham and Isaac, no one is lost. No one dies. Not even a horned animal dies. This begins in this poem a new religion. It begins a new way of thinking and being together, a way that does not demand killing or bloodshed, a moment that flashes up in a time of great danger and presents something new and different. Rather than choosing which side should be flattened, I choose that which doesn't lose and doesn't kill, finds and unites rather than destroys and shatters, listens beyond the call to vengeance, searches for what's beyond the terrible cycle, offers a nuanced position and refuses the sides, discovers what's beyond the bleakness of the present, looks past the borders that have been drawn by human hands, speaks with bravest fire while searching for hope, for peace, for another way that flashes up in moments of danger.